In this episode, we are going to see how we can control variable parameters with repeaters and analyze some examples. So it might seem complex at first, but you'll see it's very simple, and once you get the concept, you won't stop thinking of creative applications. So let's start with a very basic example. I'm going to start with a simple square. And what we want to do is control the width of the stroke of this square. So for this, we'll use the variable menu, which is it's a panel, which is at the very bottom here, variable values. And we will create a new value that we will call width, and that will range from 0 to 10 points. So now, to make sure this slider here does nothing to now, how can we link it to the stroke width of this rectangle? So we select the rectangle and we go in the stroke width dialog here and press Control click. And now you can see the parameter is available here. So now it's at 0, so it shows a hairline, but if you increase it, you see you can change the stroke width of this rectangle. So that's the first step. Now let's create a repeater. So we get this repeater, and we can check that the slider here still controls the width, the stroke width. So now we'll set the repeater to control the stroke width for each of the cells of the repeater. And for that, we'll use a function here called adjust number values. It opens this menu here. We can see our variable width is already pre-populated. So there's a drop-down. If there were many, you would be able to select. And we click here to adjust the number. So it adjusts it from 0 to 1, which is going to change that to have more amplitude, and preview. So it's not very visible here because we're using noise. Let's use gradient, for instance. So here, immediately you see the stroke is thinner on this side than it is on that side. And you can, of course, control that, the effect. Change that to concentric. All right. So you see we can control the stroke width with the repeater. Very, very nice. So now let's have a look at a few examples to illustrate some applications. So we'll start with this one. So this repeater was created. Let me release it. So you see there's a picture, and there's a triangle, which is a polygon shape, with the number of sides, which is controlled by a variable here. So you can increase the number of sides. Now if we create a repeater again, you see that the number of sides, so it goes from a triangle for the very bright areas to a polygon with more sides for the darker areas, like 6 sides here on this. So let's look at the number. So you see the parameter size is adjusted by object content, so the image that was used to create the repeater, with a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 8 points. Let's look at another example. I'm going to use this one. So this one is another example where we control this time another parameter. So it's the base shape is a rectangle here, and this rectangle corner is controlled by a variable called corner, which is itself controlled in the repeater by the region or the object content from 0 to 70 points. And so you see the corner is very high, so the dot is small and very round. And for darker places, it's more squarish. So it's also a nice way to vary, not just the size. So there's also scaling applied here on object content. So if I remove the scaling, you see, so here you just have the effect of the corner. It doesn't give a lot of variation. but once you apply the scaling, immediately you start seeing stuff, those variations of shape here, which are very nice. Another example, so here, okay, so this also, we still have the same flower pot image, but this time we have an ellipse, and this ellipse we have applied an effect. And the effect is the offset path, and we're controlling the number of steps with a variable called steps. So the preview doesn't work, but the effect works. So you see, darker areas have more steps in the offset than lighter areas which have a single stroke. Let's look at another example. So this one is using a node bump effect. So you see the shape is extended like this in one way and very round on the other way. So that's a typical effect you can get with node bump, and controlling the adjustment with a variable and get this kind of effect. This one is nice as well, a bit more abstract. So here the base shape of this one is a simple rectangle here, and we're going to control the width of this rectangle through a variable. So unfortunately, we can't directly control the width of a shape. That's a bit sad with a variable. And we can't either use the transform effect. So I used the select size here and controlling the width with a variable. All right, so you see you get this effect, and also the coloring is using the object content. The next example is this one. So this one is interesting. So it's using as a base shape a grid, and you can control the grid, the number of lines within the grid horizontally with this parameter here. So it's not doing nothing here, but let me so you can change it. So what I want to show in this example is one of the adjustment modes, which is expression. So this one allows you to enter here a little formula to control how the repeater changes the variable using an internal variable which is called index. So index is starting from 0 here. So you see 0, it's all black, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So here I will use index +1, so to not have the 0 here. But you see the index starts from the bottom left and up to the top right. And you can apply different formulas here. So you could say 2 times index. So here it would double for each increment in position, or index divided by 2. So here it would repeat 2 cells with the same value. So 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And you could go, and you can use a lot of mathematical functions. So you can use sinus, cosinus, all these values. Let me show you one formula which I found. So this one is interesting. So what it does, it computes a modulo function. So a floor is a rounding function, takes the index, divides it by the number of columns, +1. So what this does is it will fix one value for the first row, another value for the other row, etc. So that's a way to have like a gradient if you want, but with much more control about how the values progress from one row to the other. So you can go very, very deep with all these features. So that's all for today. I just wanted to touch on this very, very powerful feature, which is how to control numbers and variables using repeaters. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.